my text, I'm going into the whole topic about like human thought, and like it was a big change from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. How a lot of the texts were sprinkled around like religious aspects, and they were very serious rather than. In these texts, it's getting a lot more like even with the comedies, it's getting a lot more humorous, and people are starting to stray from. They're starting to do their own things. Like my book has a lot as talking about con men who are trying to they're taking from priests and other people. So I mean, it's very different. Like now, it's like the human beings are able to be bigger than the church rather than follow it. So I think a big part of the philosophy here is that I mean, maybe not even philosophy, but even just like life ideas that religion is just starting to crumble that's the biggest thing.
I agree with that because. Okay. Wait, are you going to stop? You continue.
Nolan. Oh, okay. I was like, Ann, you know me.
I'm Jen. But I completely agree with the religion thing because in my book about incest, sorry, the brother goes in like the first scene. The brother goes to the church friar or whatever, like the priest, and tells him about his situation with his sister. And the priest is like, that's a huge sin, like you can't be with your sister. And the guy completely disregarded the priest's advice, and that's completely different than in the Middle Ages, where if a priest said something, people would listen. But now they were still doing their incest thing, so the opinions of the priest weren't as intense.
Renaissance, I'm Hinari by the way, but Renaissance was known for being where human beings were greater than God, and that's why I think it was responsible that they disregard things comments and
Well, building off that,
a little louder, Gabe.
building off that, I'm
Okay.
Gabe. I don't know how to do that. There you do. So the Renaissance, so I was reading King Lear, and it's very, in the beginning you see this very patriarchal society, structure. King Lear is the king, he's the man, and then his daughters owe this responsibility to him, in the sense that he has all this land, all this power, and he wants to divvy it up between his daughters, because that's the cool thing to do. Your dad and your daughters, land, money, you got it. That's cool. Problem is though, I think this is Shakespeare's kind of saying something here, is there's this defiance of the patriarchal structure, because two daughters say, he has three daughters, two of them say to him yo dad, I love you, you messed up, right? Makes sense. And the last daughter's like, Dad, I can't say I love you because it's not true, right? Whoa. That's a shift. Right, that's exactly, normally you just say, Dad, I love you, just give me my money, and I'll go off and marry, and I'll never see you again. But this is a sort of defiance to it. So I think, in the sense of, I guess Renaissance and the whole, shift of changing times, I think that in the past, and pre-Renaissance, medieval era, most people would just be like, yo, Dad, I love you, money, land. But Renaissance is sort of saying, and I don't know if this plays out in the Renaissance, I've yet to look that up, but Renaissance is more like, yo dad, what up? I got my money power too, let's balance it out, which is a big step for women.
My topic has been women for the past couple of activities.
Great.
And what I'm noticing this time is that, like Gabe said, the women have a lot more free thought. I found one quote, and she's going back and forth with this guy who's clearly better off than she is, and the servant girl is just making fun of him and teasing him. And it was interesting to see that because even last time the women were sexualized, but they didn't have a lot of free thought. And this one, I found several scenes where women just speak their mind, and it's interesting.
I think going off now, and I'm reading Thomas More's Utopia, and it's I found it interesting because now in the Renaissance, just like you guys are saying, he's challenging the societies of Europe, and he's saying that the societies aren't right and a new world, like utopia, like a made-up society should be more how it is. It should be like, and like in utopia, the women can have jobs and they can be priests. So I thought that was really interesting. So it's kind of different from the Middle Ages. Like people are challenging things in the Renaissance. I see a lot. Oh, that was Stephanie.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm Anne. Thank you. And I'm looking at more death as a. Okay, I'm looking more as death. So my big text is Othello, and it's basically just I haven't really gotten into the big part about it yet, but I have found like a couple of scenes where people are just like proclaiming their like undying love for someone and how they're so in love that since they can never be with their love, they just want to kill themselves. So I looked at that, and there's a couple different ways death was addressed in all those passages, and they almost regarded death as more of a physical being versus like a condition, which I found like even throughout perhaps even the Middle Ages, it was regarded as more of a being because they couldn't really put a name to something that they couldn't like feel tangible to. So instead they just looked at it as Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Here you go.
All right, going a little bit off of, I guess, the idea of death, I'm studying the part in Queen Elizabeth, her reign, where Mary, the Queen of Scots, is imprisoned. And I noticed, like, three main plots, like, that have to do with Mary, but that were against the Queen at the same time. They're called the Duke of Norfolk scheme in 1569, the Throckmorton plot of 1583, and the Barbington plot of 86. And I think during that time, like Elizabeth, she was never really safe. As long as Mary pretty much was alive, she was a potential threat to Queen Elizabeth. But I like the way she handled it, and I noted it in a primary document and a diary. I don't know who it's from. The specific diary is unknown. But it says that she recognized the danger that Mary represented, but she was also acutely conscious of her status. As a sovereign or royal person with royal blood, you kind of can't, I guess, just condemn Mary for whatever she did. This was a little bit before the execution, which we read an excerpt on her speech about. And it says that since she was a sovereign person, she was, I guess she had a royal prerogative, which is where basically it's a privilege, a royal privilege. You can't just be handled like a common person. So what's going on now in my book, which I'm seeing a lot through Volpone, by Ben Jonson, is the plan where Mary is trying to sort of, the Queen Elizabeth is trying to strip Mary of her royal standing so that now she can kind of execute Mary the way that she wants to. In the excerpt that we read, I noticed that Queen Elizabeth's tone toward Mary was a little bit more stressed because it was her family. But these sources sort of give a different point of view, because here it seems like Mary's always trying to kill Queen Elizabeth under the table. And I saw that through a plot with, what's his name? De Guise of France. And there's also like a lot of rumors that I'm looking into between Queen Elizabeth, Mary, and some guy she was dating. There's like casket letters. So this whole trial, I found out, was over the fact that her first